Hello there, welcome back to Language Professora. We are doing repetition, which is another of our literary devices. Now, what is repetition? As the word suggests, there is a repeating or a saying over and over and over and over of a particular word, phrase, maybe a sound, especially in our literary pieces. So, repetition is found in our poems, it's found in our novels, it's found in our plays. It is something that is used to kind of create a rhythm or a rhyme, or it sort of lands nicely on the air when you hear it, and it stands out in terms of you remember this particular piece, whether it be a poem, whether it be a paragraph from a novel, whether it be a scene from a play. You remember it because of how much it was repeated. But what is the function of repetition? Repetition serves two purposes. It either emphasizes a particular idea or a particular area or a particular scene. Maybe it emphasizes a particular character because this character is known for saying this. If you think about it, I can't pull any examples off the top of my head, and I don't want to, because I want you to think about it. A favorite show of yours, a favorite character of yours, and something that they're known for saying. That is repetition at work in the terms of emphasis. So it's being used so that it is registering in your mind as the reader or the listener. And you don't overlook it because it's been said so many times, you can't overlook it. Another function of repetition is it provides rhythm. Between the written and the spoken language, there is a rhythmic sense of repetition, especially in oral presentations, right? And because of that rhythm, there's a musicality that kind of lands on your ear. And as humans, we are very inclined to music. So remember those two functions. It's for emphasis and it creates rhythm. So whenever you're looking at a piece, you want to identify, are they trying to emphasize something here? What is the rhythm that is being created here? We're going to be looking at some types of repetition. And I'm warning you from now, these are some big words, some unusual words, but they have a very simple meaning if we look into it. So the first type of repetition is called anaphora. And with anaphora, it's where you have a particular word or group of words at the beginning of successive clauses or sentences. Successive meaning they're coming one after the other. So, in this particular example, A Tale of Two Cities, that's a novel that is very popular with previous generations. For our younger generations, maybe not so much, but it's a very well known novel. It's A Tale of Two Cities, and whether or not you have read the book, the average person in a particular age range can quote this opening paragraph. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. That repetition of the it was, it was, it was within the paragraph in the successive phrases, it stands out. It creates a rhythm, as we mentioned before, and it creates an emphasis, as we mentioned before. So when you have that repetition being at the beginning, it's called anaphora. Another one is epistrophe. Now, the epistrophe is where you have that same repetition that we spoke about with the anaphora, but this time it's taking place at the end of the clauses or the sentences. And this comes into play especially like in our poems, especially in our songs. So the example I have on screen here is Beyonce's Single Ladies. And that line, then you should have put a ring on it, is an epistrophe because it's repeated at the end of the lines in the successive lines in the chorus of the song. So it sticks with you. Another one is Simplos. There's no accent over the E, so it's not Simplose. Simplos is where we have a combination of the anaphora and the epistrophe. So think about it. We have now a combination of repetition at the beginning of clauses and sentences and repetition at the end. So we have a combination of the two taking place. So this is an example coming from Bill Clinton's speech. When there is talk of hatred, let us stand up and talk against it. When there is talk of violence, let us stand up and talk against it. So the when there is the anaphora, and the let us stand up and talk against it is the epistrophe. And so that combination of the two is called Simplos. Another one that we have is mesodiplosis. Pronounce that one properly. And the mesodiplosis is where you have the repetition of a word in the middle of a phrase or a clause. And we have an example coming from the Bible. It says, we are afflicted in every way but not crushed, perplexed but not driven to despair, persecuted but not forsaken, struck down but not destroyed. The but not is happening in the middle of the phrase or the clause, and so that is your mesodiplosis. Then we have epizeuxis, and this is the very simplest type of repetition, and it pops up in our nursery rhymes, and that is the repetition of a single word in sequence. Notice it's not a word at the beginning or a word at the end or a word in the middle or a combination of the two, but it's one single word that we have being repeated over and over and over in a sequence. Very popular example, row, row, row your boat. So the row, row, row would be the epizeuxis, and that is repetition as well. And if you think about our functions, is it creating a rhythm? Is it emphasizing? Which is it doing? Is it doing both? Once you have the function being taken care of, you know you have a repetition on your hands. Then we want to think about repetition in terms of words and word placement versus repetition of sounds. Now, this is the one that you may be more familiar with in terms of repetition of sounds. So when it comes on to literary devices, we have some aspects of repetition that pertain to sound that we're going to be taking a look at. I don't want to say the words because I know you know them, so I don't want to say them until I get to them. But let's take a look at them. First one, consonants. You know this one. You know this one, right? Consonants, it sounds like consonant, doesn't it? And that's exactly what kind of repetition it is. So it's the repetition of sounds made by consonants. And you have your tongue twister. Shelley sells shells by the seashore. So that repetition of the s or the sh is consonants. Simple, isn't it? Another one that you know now is the flip of the consonants. And if it's not a consonant, it's a vowel. And that repetition is called assonance. And so with the assonance, you have the repetition of a vowel sound within a single line of the text. And this is often called what we call vowel rhyming, and it happens in the middle of consecutive words. So you want to think about the fact that repetition, for something to come across as repetition, there has to be a sequencing with it. So everything that we have said before, the repetition examples are occurring very close to each other, right? So with the assonance, these words have to be in sequence or very close to each other in the middle of the sentence or in the middle of the line, in the middle of the word in the sentence. An example of this is Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Bells. Hear the mellow wedding bells. So mellow wedding bells. You have that repetition of the vowel sound. E. Mellow wedding bells. That's assonance at work for you. And then you know this one, alliteration. Alliteration is when you have two or more words that are connected and they're sharing the same first consonant sound. In the famous song by the Beatles, Let It Be, whisper words of wisdom, right? Let it be. Let it be. Whisper words of wisdom is an example of alliteration. And that's it. That's all there is to repetition. So just think about it. If it is falling on your ear in a musical way, or when you read it, you get the sense of this information being said over and over and over. You may not be able to pinpoint the type of repetition that it is immediately, but you know that repetition is at play. So, happy reading.